of the divorce cases are reported because of financial issues, the conflicts there, and there is insecurity that we may not be able to live together happily with this kind of financial decision. They start pursuing their own ways. That shouldn't happen.
If one partner is working and the other is not, so the one who is not working, what questions should she or he ask their respective to-be partners?
Narayan Murthy, Sudhamurthy was working and supporting. He didn't have any income in the initial days.
Yes.
So probably that fair question. Are you willing to support me financially during this phase of my life when I'm not earning?
If both of them are working, so what conversation can they have when it comes to merging their assets, their money together?
Among working couples, separation happens mostly because they remain separate even after marriage financially.
Marriage planning is all about excitement, fun, frolic, and laughter. Well, a shocking fact is that only 51% of the couples disclose finances before marriage. Even more surprising is that only 41% of the couples disclose their annual salaries, and only 36% of them bring up debt. Hello and welcome to Indian Money's YouTube channel. I'm Kirti Gosai. Today, once again, we have with us Sudhir sir, the CEO and founder of the Freedom app. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So today we will be discussing about the financial discussions that couples should have before they get married. So I would start with a personal conversation. Did you have this conversation before you got married?
Absolutely, I had. In fact, I got married on 2010, June 7th. It's been now 12 years. And I think I met my wife about 2 months before. And this is an arranged marriage. So when I went to see her, that was my initial days of my startup journey. I started Indian Money in 2008. And by 2010, by the time I got married, I was totally broke.
Okay.
I was like, my finances were way bad. We met her and then I told that I want to speak to her.
Right.
And then we went out to speak. And then I used to carry 1,000 rupee Nokia phone that time.
Right.
And I shown that phone to her and I said, because I'm the CEO of a company, don't have big expectations. No weekend outing or holidays and all that. I'm currently using this 1,000 rupee phone and that is also broke.
Right.
And I have got big responsibilities and I have to build this dream business of mine. So I hope you're fine with that. And I said that this is my current situation. So I don't want to force you or I don't want to kind of impose. I'm giving you time. You take your time. You think. Only if you feel that, okay, you're willing to, share this journey with me and willing to fight this together, then let's talk about the next steps. Obviously, she didn't like me. So she went and told her father that, no, this is not going to happen because he comes from a decent family, so she never wanted to take this extra risk and burden, and there was so much of uncertainty. Right? And then she told her father, but her father told her that, no, you should get married to him. Because he comes from the business background and that's how the marriage happened. And fortunately, because of maybe all the disclosures I had, I went through, you won't believe, right after my marriage, June 7th was my marriage. June month salary I had to pay to my team on the first week of July. I didn't have money. I sold my car right after my marriage, within first month. Then second month I pledged all the gold I had with me. Okay. Then third month onwards I started asking her gold. So June was the marriage. By December end, I had pledged all her gold, except her Mangalsutra. Okay. Everything I had pledged. I think that journey, she stood strong with me. She fought with me primarily because I had disclosed everything. Right. And it was a very clear agreement, right? Of course, we had good days after that and things changed for us. But then those days, probably if I wouldn't have shared, we wouldn't have been together. Right. I think this is super important. I think you've brought up a very important topic in every relationship, especially marriage. Because I was reading somewhere most of the divorce cases are reported because of financial issues.
Right.
The conflicts there, right? When there is insecurity that we may not be able to live together happily with this kind of financial decisions, they start pursuing their own ways. That shouldn't happen.
Right.
So I think it is super important.
Right. So that comes to another question. Like, so if one partner is working and the other is not, so the one who is not working, what questions should she or he ask their respective to-be partners?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, I mean, mostly now a girl is working and the boy is not working. Very rare it happens that, boy is ready to get married without a job or without earning. Or very rare it happens that a girl expresses interest to marry such boy.
Right.
Unless until it's a love marriage, right? In arranged marriage, though, it won't happen. Very rare. But exceptional cases like the boy is trying to set up his own business, and during that phase is unemployed, and the girl is earning. That case again, this may happen. But what questions to be asked? First thing is, do you want me to work? Do you want me to earn? Right? The other partner, are you willing to support me financially?
Right.
Let's say now, I was reading about the Naukri.com founder.
Right.
His wife was earning and supporting him.
Right.
Narayan Murthy, Sudhamurthy was working and supporting him.
Yeah.
He didn't have any income in the initial days.
Yes.
So probably that fair question, are you willing to support me financially during this phase of my life when I'm not earning?
Right.
Like a girl telling him, okay, we are getting married and we need to plan a family. So we'll have kids. So now probably during this phase, next 5-6 years, I may not work.
Right.
Probably when we have our kids, once they start going to school, we'll have free time, then I will start earning.
Right.
But until then, I will not.
Right.
So will you be able to support me financially?
Right.
So because when the girl decides to dedicate her life to raise the family, she should also be compensated.
Right.
Right? And she has got her own needs.
Definitely.
Right? So it should not happen that she has to bargain every month.
Right.
Okay, I need this much, why so much?
Right.
That should not happen.
Yes.
I think that fair discussion around, because no favor here.
Right.
In relationship or business, no favor. Even in relationship, it is more about, each one of us, we sacrifice. Right? Or we complement each other.
Right.
So it is for a bigger cause. Right?
Cause.
That should be in the mind.
Right.
So if it is a, let's say a girl, asking the boy, so do you want me to work?
Right.
Or do you want me to take care of your family?
Yes.
That's again equal responsibility. It is not something that, let's say now you have old parents, you've got kids. Like in my case, now I've got 3 boys.
Right.
And my wife can't think of moving out of home.
Right.
Now I can have a maid to take care, but my kids are as important as my company.
Right. Exactly.
Right? I can't compromise with their future.
Right.
And my wife, shares that dream.
Right.
She sees a billionaire in them.
Right.
She sees that future in them. So I think it's good to do that. Right. But of course, we need to take care of each other's comfort there, because I should also equally respect her for what she's doing, and our children also should remember that contribution. So, but of course, that's post-marriage. But pre-marriage, it is super important that we have this discussion.
Right.
Will you be able to support me financially if I don't work, or I try doing something which is good for both of us?
Right.
Setting up own business or raising family.
Right.
Or probably some cases it happens that a boy and girl, they get married and the boy has got some family business to take care of. So the girl says, I will look after that.
Yeah.
So which means she's not directly employed somewhere.
Right.
Right? She's actually looking after the family business.
Right.
During those days, what happens? Many times it happens actually, they don't discuss about the salary.
Yeah.
She's working hard. She's running the big bakery or restaurant or some small business or farmland.
Right.
There's no formal agreement. Contract. And then again, she has to depend on the family.
Right.
That too, in case if there's a joint family, there are more restrictions.
Right.
So I think these things should be discussed.
Right.
Because marriage, from me, I feel it is not a favor, it's a contract. It's a contract. And that contract, as we say, offer and consideration, I think it has to be there.
Yes.
Offer, acceptance and consideration. If that is not there, it's not a marriage.
Exactly.
I keep telling my wife, she says, you are not available to us when we need you. I say that whatever I'm doing is for us, our family.
Right.
Let's say tomorrow we decide to separate. 50% of whatever I've accumulated is yours.
Right.
So know your rights.
Right.
Right? Sometimes I joke. I say, I'm your bonded labor. I work for you.
Right.
It's not just the other way.
Yes.
It's not that you work for me. So I think this is something which should be known to every husband, every wife.
Exactly.
It is not one way.
Yes.
Right?
So that comes to another question. Now, if both of them are working, so what conversation can they have when it comes to merging their assets, their money together?
See, I think among working couples,
Right.
separation happens mostly because they remain separate even after marriage, financially.
Right.
I feel a stronger bonding can be built only when they integrate.
Yes.
It is not like you and me, it is we, right? That has to be there. So wherein my salary, your salary is okay, but once it comes, it is our income,
Exactly.
our assets, our liabilities,
Yeah.
our dreams, our financial goals.
Right.
So that clarity should be there, because sometimes what happens, women says, I want to be independent.
Right.
Right, no doubt. But then how long?
Yeah.
Now forever, if you want to have your own assets, your own life, you will never integrate.
Exactly.
Which means, like any such, like a small fight can separate you. In Indian culture, I think so it's not just about one individual's aspiration, it is about the family, like children, the society also, right? So I think my way of thinking is integration has to happen.
Right.
Tomorrow, if they decide to separate, then of course there is a way to account it and things like that. But it is important that are they willing to do that?
Right.
But they can always own the property jointly.
Right.
It should not be, there are some situations, husband demands, whatever you earn, you should give it to me. And he'll buy everything in his name.
Right.
Or the opposite.
Right.
That's not good. You integrate means it's a true integration. Every asset should be co-owned.
Right.
Right? That is also equally important. There should not be any kind of dominance there.
Right. So one thing that women in our country really don't, know or do, and I have seen that with the younger, educated generation as well, is that they do not have joint accounts after they get married. So how important is it to have that conversation on having a joint account as soon as you get married?
So things like where you said, both are earning,
Right.
and they're trying to do transactions together. It is very important.
Right.
Joint account is very important. But in case, for example, only husband is earning,
Right.
legally wife has the protection,
Right.
right? So joint account may not be required.
Right.
For various reasons, because
Right.
sometimes operating would be difficult and things like that. But otherwise, it's good to have one.
Right.
It's good to have a joint account. But unfortunately, this is not being educated.
Right.
Many people don't even explore that option.
Right.
See, in some situations, it becomes very important.
Right.
But things like, let's say now, in my family, I'm the only person earning.
Right.
And whenever I buy anything, probably property, things like that, it is mostly based on my credentials.
Right.
So joint account is of no use.
Yeah.
It doesn't really help.
Right.
These days, we don't really save money in our savings bank
Right.
account. We only make investments.
Right.
So for that reason, KYC and taxation, a lot of complicated things, it doesn't make sense to have that.
Right.
But even then, I make it a point that wherever possible, she's my co-applicant
Right.
or the co-owner.
Right.
That actually gives her also that comfort.
Right.
Because even for my children, I keep saying that should never see her as somebody there to just to cook for us or
Yes.
feed us. It is she plays a bigger role.
Right.
Right? Only because she is willing to sacrifice and raise the family, I'm able to come out and work.
Right. Exactly.
I think that has to be understood.
Yes.
And that can be compensated through this, joint account,
Right.
where you make her understand that, okay, we have this equal share.
Right. So, sir, another question that I also have is that how can couples be financially together, yet have a little bit of independence. So how can that conversation go on, like before you get married, and how can that materialize later on after marriage?
No, I think there's nothing wrong in keeping it separate.
Right.
Nothing wrong in keeping it separate. And even if they integrate, I think they decide. For example, the husband says, hey, I will need about 30,000 monthly, 50,000 monthly for my personal things.
Right.
And no questions asked.
Right.
Clear.
Right.
The wife says, I will need 50,000. What she does with it, it's up to her.
Yes.
There shouldn't be so much of detailing around where do you spend this money.
Right.
I think that clarity is important. But if they choose to share,
Yeah.
nothing wrong. Nothing wrong.
Right.
See, privacy is a very complicated point.
Right.
Because if I decide to share things with somebody, let's say my parents today, there's nothing privacy between me. Like, I share everything with them. I share all my information with them. I think that gives them that comfort. At the same time, I also sometimes, whenever I feel very low, I'm able to share it with them.
Right.
So what happens? I stay very isolated.
Right.
I have some problem today, and I've never shared these, my financial position with anybody.
Right.
Now I can't go back and share my problems with somebody, or I'm not able to kind of get that, helping hand. So it is super important that you develop that kind of bonding,
Right.
where you keep sharing. Because I've seen many women and even men, they make investments without disclosing it to their partner,
Right.
and they lose it.
Right.
And they don't, come back and even discuss, because they've even made this investment without disclosing.
Right.
And the other problem is a lot of undisclosed investments today
Right.
are leading to unclaimed investments later.
Right.
So wherein I make some investments, I don't tell this to my wife or
Right.
my family, and tomorrow I'm not there.
Right.
They don't get it.
Right.
No proper nominations or will for that.
Yeah.
So today LIC has got tons of money sitting there, which is unclaimed.
Unclaimed.
RBI has got something called Investor Education Fund, and that fund is formed from this unclaimed money from all these bank accounts, and that's worth about 30,000 crore today.
Right.
Yeah, so that should not happen.
So another thing that these days couples do not discuss is taking care of their parents after retirement, and which is very important. So could you give us an insight on the sort of conversations that couples really need to have?
I think, see, this is very important. Many times what happens, they think we'll discuss about it later, we'll think about it later kind of attitude, which is bad. Because think from an angle, where parents are not financially well-to-do, where they are dependent on son or daughter for financial needs, where financially they are taken care, but they still need moral support and we have to stay together. So wherever financial commitment is there, they should disclose that, and they should discuss and have that agreement that, okay, hey, this is good,
Right.
I'm okay with it. Sometimes what happens, the husband's income is very less, he's earning, let's say, 1 lakh. He has to spend 30,000-40,000 rupees on his parents.
Right.
And if he has agreed, if this is being discussed before marriage, spouse should be okay with it.
Right.
And same way, vice versa also, right?
Right.
And sometimes what happens, these days today we have got single child, just the daughter, and she has to take care of her parents. If she is earning some money, she should say that, okay, I will have to take care of my parents in case for raising our family. If I decide not to work, you have to support them.
Yeah.
She should have that agreement.
Right.
I think if that is not there, tomorrow even, you can't say that, okay, like recently it happened, an employee of ours, and she has got her old parents, and her brother is not taking care of them. She wants to take care of her parents, but her husband is not supporting. And they're literally thrown out of the home, and they're literally on street. We kind of came across these incidents, and I really felt very bad. And this happens everywhere. That should not happen, because they've sacrificed so much to raise them. Today I'm raising my kids, I know how difficult it is to raise them. So much of sacrifice we do. But then if they don't value that contribution, I agree. I keep telling them, Your children are not your retirement fund.
Right.
But then there is that moral responsibility.
Exactly.
Because see, today you can be, we can say that, okay, I'm going to plan for my retirement and say, but those days they didn't have means to do that. They didn't have enough funds to do that, right? So they whatever they had, they've invested for their education. They've invested to create that, comfort.
Right.
But now suddenly if you say that, no, I can't take care of you, that's very bad. So they have to spell out this. And it is wrong to assume that girls can't bring their parents to husband's home or stay together post-marriage. This is happening today.
Yes.
I've seen some of my very good friends, since they're like two brothers. The parents stay with the other brother, but he is now taking care of his in-laws.
Yes.
They stay with him.
Yes.
And very respectfully they treat. That's important.
Right. So another question, these days everybody, very young minds want to start their own businesses. So that question should come before marriage. I mean, taking your example, of course it should come before marriage, but some of them don't have the, I would say, guts to bring it out before marriage because they feel, they do not know what the future holds. So the gravity of that situation, how important is that conversation?
I think that's super important, and
Right.
I shared my example, but
Yes.
think about it, right? Now there are two scenarios. One, they're running the business now, they're not in a good shape. The way I shared, they must share. They want to get into business post-marriage.
Right.
But the wife may assume, or the spouse may assume that, okay, this is going to be like this only. Is well employed, is well paid, he's employed somewhere, and our life is going to be easy like this.
Yeah.
But then when you venture into business, you never know. I've seen my friends who started their own business, they sold their house. They sold everything they had and they failed in business. Sometimes you're lucky, I think in my case, I was lucky. I suffered, but I'm lucky that at least I've seen some success.
Right.
Today, I lead a good life.
Right.
But that's not the case with everyone.
Right.
There are people who have sacrificed everything they had.
Right.
At the same time, they lost their business and they're back to square one. And the spouse has to stand with them.
Yes.
And it is both ways, right? So sometimes it happens. A wife decides to venture into business. So they should support. But then I think these discussions should happen pre-marriage. But sometimes, let's say now, I want to start a business after 5 years from marriage. By then you will gel well.
Right.
It will be fine. But if you're looking at planning, a business 1 year from marriage or 2 years from marriage, it is good to discuss this.
Right. So now coming to this question, should you be discussing your credit scores?
I keep joking this. You'll have a day where when you say I want to get married, both the ways, husband and wife, I think they should ask, what's your credit score? Why don't you share your credit report with me? Because if you're someone who has borrowed money from different places, you're not paid back, your credit score is bad, you're not a trustworthy person. How do I trust you? Right? I think this is super important.
Right.
So you must. I keep telling, if your credit score is bad, believe me, you won't get girl or boy to get married.
Right.
It'll happen. I think days are not very far.
Yeah.
You may not even get a job.
Right.
So it is super important to ask, and it's fair.
Right.
Because just think about it. Today, you want to buy a 1 crore rupee house. Can you arrange 1 crore and then buy a house? No. You might probably arrange 20-30 lakhs and then reminding you need loan. What if your credit score is very bad? Your credit history is very bad. You won't get loan.
Yeah.
So which means purchasing a house will become a distant dream.
Right.
Same thing goes with car.
Right.
Or any other such costly items.
Right.
So it is super important that we have that clarity.
Right. And so this last question I have for you is that in this dynamic world that we are living in, how can couples align their financial goals?
It's a journey. It's not going to be overnight. I keep telling this. It is not necessary that couples have to agree to each other's, opinion or arguments, but they should respect it.
Yes.
Many a times, financial goals separate couple because they don't respect it. So I'll tell you, it recently happened. This is not with my wife, but it's with my father. So he wanted me to buy a property, a particular property. He took me to that place. I liked it. I mean, a good property, decent one. But then I never wanted to buy it because I didn't see financially viable. But then I had this very clear clarity that if I tell him upfront that I don't want to buy this property, then obviously he'll think, okay, now he's married, he'll only listen to his wife. So I went home, took a piece of paper, pen, started explaining him with clear numbers why this property doesn't make sense financially.
Right.
Then he said, oh yeah, this doesn't make sense, let's not buy it. So this goes, this applies to even wife, spouse.
Yeah.
You should discuss this.
Right.
So whenever they come up with an idea, outright don't reject it, discuss about it. So after some time, because see what happens, the thinking process. I think A is right, you think B is right. Now, initial days, unless until we discuss why I think A is right or why you think B is right, if we don't discuss this, we will never align our thinking.
Yeah.
You don't align your thinking, you will never align your financial goals.
Right.
So it is super important that we start thinking in the same line.
Right.
That's a process.
Right.
That takes some time, right? So I think we need to have these discussions pre-marriage where we discuss about, hey, you know what? In the future, if we decide to do something, for example, husband says, let's buy this luxury car. Wife says, let's build our dream home, which is important. What do we do in such circumstances? Should we delay both and do it together? Or should we go with? So then, can we agree on that, whose argument makes sense?
Right.
So we should respect each other's argument and then decide. No need to agree or accept, right? I think that's the right way to align.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, I'm sure all the young people who are going to get married are going to love this conversation. With that, it's a wrap on this video. Do share and comment and like, and also for more such content, download the Freedom app in the link to the app given below.